Welcome back, dear listeners, to the Fright or Flight podcast, where we rank, recap, and review every movie in a given horror franchise. And today, we're keeping it in the family.
We're going to be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003, written by Kem Henkel, Tom Hooper, and Scott Kosser, and directed by Marcus Nispel.
Toby Hooper. Toby Hooper, not Tom Hooper.
I said Toby.
No, you didn't.
We'll go back and we'll see who's right.
It's okay. Anyway, I'm Geraldine, or Jump Scare Jer, the fright of the podcast. I'm a connoisseur, a lover, and I was conditioned to love horror movies as an early child. I also love Halloween in general, so I just love spooky all year round, and that's kind of my thing. And then I've peer pressured this one right here.
That's right.
But only because he asked me to.
Right. So I'm the flight of the podcast. You know, Geraldine, I'm not super into horror movies, and I've never seen most of them. I've never seen this one that we're going over today.
It's a good one.
I feel like, are you familiar with this one?
Yes, I am.
You've seen it before?
Multiple times.
What do you think?
I love this one.
Okay. Well, this one is the first remake film, I'd say. Like, we got 4 in a row, and some of them, you know, relate to each other. Just some barely do. This one's the first one where I feel like this is a new generation's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. What do you think?
Okay. Well, this is a movie. That is for sure. It's definitely a movie. Honestly, I enjoyed a lot of the things that the film did. I liked a lot of the callbacks that it made.
So many.
I think I was fooled a little bit, though. I think this movie tricked me.
Okay.
And it tricked me in the sense of, I found out that the cinematographer for this film, I think his name is Daniel Pearl.
Yes.
He is the original cinematographer for the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. And that surprised me because when I was watching this one, I felt like, oh my gosh, cinematically speaking, the visuals, the angles, everything that's done with the camera makes it look like this is like another level of filmmaking that Texas Chainsaw Massacre has never had. And I love those things about it. However, I think I fooled myself maybe a little bit into thinking that that also means that the level of story crafting was also increased. And I don't think we quite met a new threshold, a new bar. I don't think this movie did. But ultimately, I did find this film, like, it wasn't, I feel like this is the fifth movie we're covering, and the last 3 really teetered on a level of, like, honestly, like, you could call it cringe, you could call it over the top, whatever you want to call it. And this movie, I feel like, at least knows what it is.
Yes, and the thing that I love the most about this movie is that it goes back to the roots of the very first one, which is it's meant to be scary, horrifying, like bone-chilling. And this one was also a little bit more graphic. It was probably the most graphic one that we've gotten so far, and I love it.
Right. I think it definitely plays more towards our sensibilities, like for like people our age, as opposed to like I mean, the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre came off as really goofy to me. And you're right. If this movie set out to be like scarier than the past few, I think it definitely did its job.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because I mean, I don't know, there were just a lot more horrifying elements. Even because we've talked about this throughout the entire podcast. There's this thing in horror movies where there's an unfortunate like male gaze regarding women, and like there's the over sexualization of women in horror movies. Okay. And they did play on that a little bit in this one as well. Yeah. But it wasn't as, I mean, it was still uncomfortable, but it wasn't as overly done to the point where you were like, Jesus Christ, like.
Especially after the last one. If I'm being honest, like, I feel like, you know, that the male gaze, like you're saying, is present in, I mean, most films, because most films are created by men, because of, you know, the industry, the environment. That's just what it is. But it's always lurking in the back. I felt like this last one, The Next Generation, just brought it super all the way into the surface, and it was very uncomfortable. But you even saw it in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, where Leatherface was having his moment with the chainsaw and rubbing against Stretch's legs. And this movie doesn't have any of that. You know, it's not direct. However, the way the people are dressed are obviously
that, and the way that the women are spoken to, specifically by the sheriff of all people.
I'm excited to talk about that. Yeah. I thought a lot of that was fascinating because I've heard people talk about this movie, and their opinions of it were very interesting to me. And I wonder, who you are when you watch this movie affects what you think of the movie. as far as like, yeah, as the kind of person you are, you know, what kind of identity that you have.
We have a stellar cast for this movie. But one thing I did notice is the wardrobe. I really appreciated what they did. It felt like a nice callback.
We're on opposite ends here.
Okay, well,
because I know that the movie's supposed to be set in the 70s, and these people just don't look 70s to me.
Well, I agree, but it was also shot in 2003. But I think there was enough of the 70s there, especially relating back at, well, first of all, like the van, like the vehicles, the chosen vehicles, and the set design itself were very, very much so, I would say. But I enjoyed, there was still like influence from the original film that I felt like that they played on, which I did appreciate, because this random girl, which the storytelling, we'll get into that, but the character Pepper was wearing a halter top, very similar to Pam.
That's true. That's right. Yeah.
We still had the work shirt looking kind of thing that Kemper was wearing, the boyfriend who was driving. Jessica Biel playing Erin was wearing a tank, like a wife beater, kind of similar to how Sally wore like a tank top kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
We had a blonde gentleman playing Andy. So, I mean, there was like a couple of little things, like the 70s glasses and the curly, like, fro hair. Yeah. That was kind of, you know, it was Morgan's character. So, I mean, there were still, like, little tidbits that they threw in.
Yeah, they went as far as to recreate, like, some of the moments from the original. Like, when you saw... eventually we meet a hitchhiker that gets into their van, and the way they interact with this person is a lot similar to the first film. So yeah, I do think it's nice that they pay a lot of homages specifically to the first one, because so far, Geraldine, if I'm being honest, I think out of all the Texas Chainsaw movies we've seen so far, the first one is the only competent one, the only one that I'm like, like the rest of them, like I'm glad I've watched them, but revisiting factor isn't very high.
Yeah, revisiting is very, very low on my list. I would much rather rewatch the very first one for rewatch value. But like these new age ones, as we get further into them, I've only seen this one and the next one that we'll watch called Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning.
Right.
That one is also very, very good. I'm
excited to watch it. Yeah.
But those two hold up very well.
Okay.
And the other ones I have not seen, so we'll be watching those like with a fresh mind together. Okay. So.
Well, I think that that idea to like, you know what, guys, let's forget about the last three. Let's just, you know, start over. I think that was a great idea.
Yeah, 1,000%. I don't think there was there was nowhere that they could go.
Yeah.
But I also like that he made the story his own as well. It's not a carbon copy.
You're
we
right.
also didn't really get like a family dinner scene in this one.
Thank the Lord.
I was kind of done.
That is one thing that I completely disagreed with somebody that I've heard talking about this. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did a dinner scene. And I'm like, you obviously have only seen the original and haven't seen the other four. Because while I do like the original dinner scene, having seen it now in every single one of these movies, I'm so thankful that they didn't recreate it.
I was done with it. I was like, it's been a while since I've seen this one, so I was like, are we going to get it again? I can't remember. But there are so many different things that they threw in that I really think do pay homage to, even like the other three.
Okay.
So yeah, I was kind of like excited, and I was like, whenever I watched like the other three was like for the podcast, I was like, oh, now I kind of see like where that came from in the new one.
Where it lines up. I also want to talk a little bit about the creation of this film, because when I was watching it, I was surprised to see in the beginning credits Michael Bay's name.
Yes, he was a producer.
He was a producer.
Which is really cool.
Well, apparently this film was produced by, I think their name is Platinum Dunes, is the name of the production company. Is a production company that Michael Bay started. And this company is known for doing remakes of horror movies. I
did not know that.
They did the Texas Chainsaw remake that we just saw. They also did Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th.
Oh, fuck.
And so I thought it was really interesting hearing the backstory about Michael Bay. I don't know very much about him besides that he directed the Transformers movies.
I like the Transformers movies. They're okay.
And once I started learning more about like how this movie got to be made, I think this is one of the first films that this production company did. And the reason they did it is that they thought that they could shoot it for a cheap enough amount of money. You know, they thought like, oh, Texas Chainsaw, you know, we probably don't need that much money to make a good film out of it. And so, and that's what Michael Bay went down to say. And in general, I have found like a couple of tidbits, including this, that about Michael Bay's involvement with the film that I thought was interesting, at least.
That is cool. I mean, typically, well, I don't want to say typically. I at least find that like horror movies in general, even though it's a huge genre, it's not widely recognized, unfortunately. Like at least in the Hollywood sense.
Right.
On that like Oscar award-winning level.
Yeah,
like,
definitely not. You don't see many horror films.
So I do agree that you could probably make a lot of them with smaller budgets and
typically
do it well.
They are smaller cost films.
But that's just so sad to me because they deserve their own award category at the award shows. There are so many stellar performances.
I really agree. I think it's just there's a level of snootiness that comes along with award shows, especially with prestigious ones like the Oscars. But I definitely think there's a caliber of performance that you have to reach to, make these movies good. And there's a reason they make money at the box office,
That's true, because people love to be scared.
Yeah.
And it's fun. And, as a date night, it's the best date night. You can cuddle up next to your date.
I don't know about that one.
Who wouldn't do that?
Spill popcorn over each other.
Then it'd be extra buttery, all buttered up,
Right.
Anyway, our cast: Jessica Biel, Jonathan Tucker as Morgan, Erica Learson as Pepper, Mike Vogel as Andy, Eric Balfour as Kemper, R. Lee Ermey as Sheriff Hoyt, David Dorfman as Jedediah. He was also known for his performance in the movie The Ring. He was a little bit younger in that, I believe. Those movies are pretty... Well, the first one's great. Andrew Briniarski as Thomas Hewitt or Leatherface.
So our characters are in the same situation as the first movie. They're on the van together. And they're all kind of sit similarly like they do in the original movie.
Very similarly.
What do you think about our main 5 teenagers?
So to me, I don't think they're like teenagers because I think they're definitely in their... Because, I mean, yeah, they're not teenagers. I think they're young adults. Because Jessica Biel's character, Erin, and her boyfriend, Kemper, Erin and Kemper apparently have lived together for the past 3 years kind of thing. And she's made it a point to make it known, like, that she's expecting a ring. I believe they're coming from I don't know, the timeline is a little confusing to me. I'm not going to lie. And I don't really know who everyone is to each other.
Okay.
But I do know that Pepper... the girl that's making out with Andy in the back seat, they only met her 19 hours ago. She was a hitchhiker, but they're all going to this concert. I think she's also on her way to this concert. Right. So they're all just going to this Lynyrd Skynyrd concert. Cool.
Going to see Skynyrd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And...
finna be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know who Morgan is to anybody, but I know that at least the coupling of Kemper and Erin, they live together, and... they went to Mexico recently. I think the group went to Mexico recently. That's right. So I feel like they're driving up to Dallas from Mexico, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And Erin's a little disappointed by this because it appears that the only reason she agreed to go on the trip is because she figured that Kemper was going to propose to her in Mexico. But no, they were getting some pot instead. And Erin doesn't like this, but Kemper says it's to make a family, to like give them a start, sell this dope. And then they get some money to start their lives together. You know what?
Full support though. Like he's just trying to do the thing.
And it's similarly to the first film. We got 2 couples and an outlier.
Yeah.
Right? In Morgan. And
I love Morgan.
I love Morgan too.
I love him.
We're both Morgan stans. And I love Franklin.
Yes.
Big fan of Franklin. He's kind of like the Franklin sub-in. And I just, he is annoying. He can be grating. But there's a level of charm that comes with it. And he really grew on me. At first I thought, oh man, this guy's just whatever.
There's always just that one character, like the outlier, that I always feel more drawn to, and I don't know what it is. Like, it's kind of like even in Scream. Like, I loved Randy.
Randy's great, yeah.
Like, I just want, like, the lone character. Like, the one that I guess you would typically assume is going to go first kind of thing. That's just what I always am drawn to. Or like they're typically the stoner kind of persona. I don't know.
Sorry, he has glasses.
He's got glasses.
And curly hair.
He's also smart. Like he has like useless knowledge that he just spouts off about the STDs. Like
statistics and stuff. Yeah. I also think that he, out of all of them, gave, like we could argue here, this is debatable, but I think he gave the best or one of the best performances out of the cast.
Oh my God,
Because
yes.
I thought, like, you know, there's instances where he gets to expose this range from like being very scared to being excited to joking around. And I think and on all these situations, I thought, oh wow, he's really portraying the character.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I think the acting, like every movie, like the acting either got worse or better. And this one, everyone did so good.
I think across the board, like everybody, I can't think of a single person in this movie that did really bad.
Yeah, I mean, even like the scene that we were jumping far ahead, but like when the sheriff actually is abusing his power, and you know, like they're all like crying. There's like snot coming out of their noses and stuff. They seem genuinely scared. To me, I was like, dang, that is just some good acting.
Yeah, they did a great job. And I have some things to say about that scene when we get there, but to explain what's going on, same thing as the first movie. These people are, you know, in a van. They're heading somewhere. Like you said, they're going to a Skinner concert.
It's a hot summer day. No AC in the van.
We're in Texas, and they come across a hitchhiker just like the first movie.
Yeah.
Except it's a lady this time. It's not, you know, this really creepy gentleman. At first, I was thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, is it going to be like a girl and she's going to be as crazy as the first one?
Yeah, no.
But no, she's obviously like something's happened to her. She needs help, so they bring her into the van, and they're all kind of freaked out by her because they all like stand across.
It's similarly shot the way that the other movie, like the original was as well, which is really funny. But like she is like traumatized, and she just keeps repeating things like "gotta get away," "I want to go home." But yeah, she just keeps repeating these things like "gotta get away," "I want to go home," and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is just so intense. But they're like, okay, and then, but little do they know, she's coming from where they're headed to, and so then she starts freaking out, tries to control the wheel, and she's just distraught. And
she's very distraught. I really appreciate how, you know, they're driving down the street, and the people that want to help her are the other two women in the car.
Yeah,
you know, goes to show, you know, the kind of situations that probably arise. And also I think it's like to our like more modern eyes, you know, in the 70s I feel like everybody was hitchhiking and you just pick up a hitchhiker like whatever, but our modern sensibilities aren't aligned that way.
Yeah.
And I think it being a woman in need like allows it to be a little more, like I said, to our sensibilities, because we're more likely to pick up a woman in need than like a, you know, strange man.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. She doesn't respond to her, like she doesn't tell them her name or anything, but she just responds and says things like, they're all dead. Yeah. I'd be like, what the fuck? I'd be freaking out.
How far does your compassion go? Because I've heard some people say.
A lot of compassion, I would say.
Me too. And some people would say like, oh, as soon as they start mentioning that, you got to get out of the car.
I'd be freaking out, and I'd want to take them to the nearest like hospital for one, or the nearest like sheriff station.
They do a horrible job at comforting this girl.
Like, yeah, if anything, their anxieties getting heightened, and they're just like, what? Like,
yeah, they need to just chill out and try to talk to her, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They needed somebody calm who could just kind of get on her level and just like reassure her, like, hey, you're safe. We're safe people. But they don't do that.
No, and we need a movie to happen.
Right, so, we do need the plot to go forth.
Yeah.
But this part, which is major trigger warnings in advance. There's going to be some body horror in this movie, suicide, unaliving, that kind of thing, gunshot wound, all kinds of grotesque, and insane kind of crazy visuals. So if you haven't seen it, just know that that's what you're going to be doing. Yeah. But anyway, before we talk about it, that's kind of what we're doing. So yeah, they pass the slaughterhouse. She starts like panicking, and she tries to take the wheel, and then she ends up pulling a gun out of her vagina and shoots herself in the head.
That's right. Now,
I will say,
okay,
this shot though, like this like actual visual image of it, the hole in her head. So sorry, this is so much to say. And then her head falling back and everyone panicking. Very well done. It
was a very cool shot. Yeah, I love seeing, you know, the camera pan out from like outside to the inside behind her head.
Very hard to watch, but very, very cool imagery, I would say.
I agree, yeah. And apparently the way it looks like it was shot is that, you know, the hole is a dummy. And it does kind of look like a dummy, you know, but, you know, when you're watching it, you're not really thinking about that. But I thought it was really good too. I was definitely not expecting it. Because
I did not give you any warning. I'm so sorry.
She touches like her thighs a little bit, and you see like how much she's been hurt. So I thought she was just, like rubbing her thighs, but no, then she pulls out a gun from in between her legs and uses it to shoot herself. And I gotta say, Geraldine, I don't know the strength, because she was walking normally, but to hold something like that, like I don't know how much power,
Listen,
like she's got to be on her kegels, man. Like, that's a lot of strength. The guns are heavy.
well, yeah. Another thing, though, it just makes me think of the movie Bridesmaids, the comedy movie Bridesmaids.
Okay,
because
what happens in Bridesmaids?
Melissa McCarthy's character,
Okay.
she's sitting next to this air marshal that she's assuming is an air marshal, but he's like, I'm not an air marshal, but she instinctively knows. So it's like an ironic thing, and she's like flirting with him the whole time.
Okay.
She's like, I love what you do for us, blah, blah, blah. It's just really funny. That movie's great if you haven't seen Bridesmaids. Anyway, she's like, if you cut a hole in your pocket, and if you really need to get something, and like she's basically saying that you could shove something up your asshole like that and cut a hole in your pocket and be able to easily get it for yourself, like as like a way to hide it. And he's like, are you saying that I'm hiding a gun up my asshole? And she's like, if you really needed to get it, she's like, I'll let you test it out on my iPod Nano. I'll cut a hole in my pocket. She's like, if I really need you to get it, I'll let, like, kind of, it was something like that. Yeah. It was hilarious, but obviously this is not the same scenario.
Yeah, that seems very difficult for me. I don't have much experience.
I would not want anything like that in any of those areas.
Yeah, no orifices. But, like, I guess she thought ahead. It doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's definitely a shock value thing, because she's down the road. She could have just been holding it. Who is she hiding it from? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess nobody would want to pick somebody up who's holding a gun, if I'm being honest.
But she didn't want to get picked up. They went out of her way to pick her up. You know what I mean?
That's true.
She wasn't like, looking for a ride.
That's true. That's true. But she was walking in the middle of the road, so they had to swerve to like make sure they didn't hit her.
Well, yeah, she felt too overwhelmed to deal with any of this any longer, and took herself out of the equation.
I mean, it was either that or Leatherface himself was going to get her again.
I don't think so. I think,
I have an assumption that she's talking about the sheriff, if I'm being honest, because he's gross.
He is, yeah, very.
Like, he's a fantastic actor, and he's been in several movies. He just, oh God, he plays such a terrible person in this movie.
I'm going to go ahead and goose the chicken here.
Okay.
Where I think that, we get a few villains here in this film, not just Leatherface. And I think the sheriff is actually the highlight across the villains for me personally. I think he is so menacing, and the things that he does in the movie are just, that's all on all boards. Not just the things he does, but the actor's performance is just so harrowing that I think he stands out a little more to me than Leatherface in this one.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I really enjoyed Leatherface in this one. First of all, we got far more than I think we've gotten in any movie, I would dare say.
Yeah, I would say so.
We get a lot more action with him. We get, like, one-on-one time with him. Like, we get to see him in, like, actually making some of the stuff out of the skin, or, like, see his, like, area that he works in.
Now, I want to talk about that for a second, because in this movie, we get to see kind of his workstation.
Yeah.
And, this one really sold me Leatherface as a craftsman.
Yeah.
Like, he has a trade. He has, like, delicate tools, like detailed tools, like a needle and thread. So he because usually I would think of Leatherface as just like a butcher, as like sloppy and like, but the case is actually that the stuff that he does has a lot of minutia involved. So I thought the environment that they put him in really lent its hand towards that. And I also found out that apparently a lot of the house that they end up being in is based on at least the set design on Ed Gein's house, photography from Ed Gein's original house that the police took.
Scary.
It is scary. I also know that the house that the movie is shot in is the interior we see in the movie is the actual interior of the house, and the house is in Texas. It's the Texan house, which the other movies, aren't too interested in, keeping it in Texas. Yeah. But this movie, they really wanted to feel like Texas.
Yeah. So after this whole situation happens, everyone's panicking, of course. Naturally, I feel like I would. Who wouldn't panic in that scenario? Like that would be so terrifying and
they
traumatizing.
get freaked out. Yeah, they come out, they throw up. I think it's interesting. I think Pepper says something like, why did she do that? Why did she have to do that to us? And that's a very selfish thing to say. Like,
well, I think what she was trying to make sense of in that moment, because I think in that all you can do is to try to make sense of things. I think what she was trying to say was like, why did she pick us to give her a ride? But she didn't. You guys stopped and got her. You guys
stopped and got her. And also, like, it's not really, I don't know, it's not about you. Somebody just took their own life. You know what I'm saying? They get kind of frustrated because they end up throwing the marijuana at this field of cows.
In order to go to the cops. So
this movie faces a lot with this question of this dead girl and what is to be done with her.
Well, what's right? What would be the right thing to do, kind of thing. And I'm with Aaron on this one. It's somebody's child. It's somebody's family. I would not want to just throw her.
I struggle with this a little bit.
I can imagine it's stinky because it's a hot summer day.
My concern is the police.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just like, and also 2 factors. 1, the police and how they would react to the situation. And 2, it's the 70s.
Right.
So, like, they can't just call the police. They got to find somewhere to go to alert the police. They have to do an investigation. Mm-hmm. And I think, in general, I'll talk about it a little more later, but this is where my question of identity comes into play with, how you would perceive the film. Because there are points in the movie where I've heard somebody say like, oh, like they should have just done it like this, and the cops should have just came and reported it. But as a person of color, I'm over here thinking like, oh, this would not, that those are such privileged ideals for me, like where like I wouldn't have the privilege of doing some of those things because then I'd get into like this whole mess.
Right. Well, to me, I mean, no matter what, it looks bad.
Yeah.
So I mean, I understand. I mean, I don't know. I think I would either take her to a hospital and maybe, I mean, that's a shitty thing to do too, just to leave the body at a hospital, but.
What are you going to do? I
mean, I don't know. I wouldn't, let's be honest. I probably wouldn't even be like, okay in that situation.
No.
So I'd kind of probably let somebody else make the decision for me.
Right.
Because.
Figure it out.
I would be too, like, panicked.
Yeah, distraught. Well, that's what they're kind of doing. But to find a hospital or anybody, a police, anything, they have to stop by and use somebody else's telephone.
They gotta go to a gas station.
Yeah, that's right. There's a trope in these movies.
Mm-hmm.
This time, it's a lady who works there. She is, it looks like she sells pig, and the pig does not look very appetizing. And when they let her use the phone, they tell her that the sheriff will be back in like 2 hours unless they go to this old mill place.
Which is so weird.
It is very odd.
I would have freaked out like Kemper did. He was like, no, why can't he come here?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to drive around with a dead body in my car. And I'm like, that makes sense.
I don't know what the move is now, because I don't think I would have trusted this lady.
I would have been like, we'll wait 2 hours.
Fair enough. I think the same things would ensue. The sheriff would just show up there instead.
Yeah.
And then they'd get screwed.
Maybe
but
so.
Yeah, they end up going to the Crawford Mill, I believe, and they meet a small child in there.
Jedediah is his name.
Jedediah, that's right. They call him Jed.
Yeah.
And, he is a small child that we don't know is a part of the family yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of, I mean, I would have assumed that.
Oh, really?
I mean,
I didn't.
I mean, granted, I've seen the movie, but, like, I would have just assumed it because the families are usually really big from the previous films.
I thought he was, like, one of the victims or something.
No, it doesn't seem so. I mean, he's got them Bubba teeth going and everything, too.
Dang, you're discriminating already.
No. I'm just saying, this family in previous films, they don't look like they take care of their teeth. That's just what I'm saying. It's it's just something I've noticed in all the films.
I guess I didn't notice, but they do pay attention to teeth. There's like, they find teeth.
Yeah.
They make bracelets of teeth. So there's teeth is a reoccurring phenomenon.
Which is gross, but go off, I guess.
Right. So their van is here. They're waiting on the sheriff. This Jedediah kid tells them that the sheriff is drunk at home, but that he lives a short walk away. So Aaron and Kemper go check this out, and they're greeted by a gentleman in a wheelchair who only allows Aaron to come inside and leaves Kemper out. And she comes inside. This house. I would immediately red flag.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter to them. What does Aaron end up doing inside the house?
He ends up going back inside the old man and dialing the number for her, which I also would have been like, I can fucking do it.
Well, this man is, he's being courteous to you. You can't tell people, like, if somebody's letting you come into their house, you can't tell them that, oh, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's the number and you're like, hey, can I use your phone? I wouldn't just hover and be like, let me dial the number for you. That's weird.
I don't think so.
I think it's weird.
I think whenever you're a visitor anywhere, the entire discretion is up to the host, and they get to decide what you do. Like if they don't feel comfortable with you touching their stuff in a certain way, then you just can't.
Have you seen their house?
Yeah, it's awful.
So I mean, I'd be. But
I don't judge. If you're a hoarder, live your life. I'm not gonna be over here saying, "Oh, you guys are nasty."
Well, I didn't say hoarders are nasty. That never once came out of my mouth. I just said that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house is nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got like animals, like pigs and chickens and stuff running all around, and it doesn't look clean.
Well, pigs are actually some of the cleanest animals.
But it doesn't look clean. They have meat hanging from like the ceiling everywhere.
That's right.
I bet it's a stinky freaking house.
Oh, I'm while in general, I think, while we were talking about Leatherface's area downstairs, one thing that did strike me very odd is that there's like 3 inches of standing water in the downstairs, which, I get the idea, as like for design, but I'm just like, I think through it and I'm like, is Leatherface just like trudging through this water every time he goes down there?
I bet it's got to be full of like disease or something.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Because I mean, like, I don't know. You have like, I'm sure you got rusted like metal parts, like like not shrapnel, but like words. I don't know, like residue. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And like, of course, like human remains and animal remains and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, I'm honestly surprised that Leatherface is still walking around and hasn't contracted, some kind of issue.
I'm sure he's immune to it.
Oh yeah, huh?
I would say so, okay. Especially growing up in his family. That seems to, it's been, like I said, keep it in the family. Like I would imagine that this is just something that they do.
Now, I will say I do like Leatherface's stature in this movie. I feel like Leatherface is very large.
Yeah.
I learned that the actor that plays Leatherface, he put on a lot of weight to play this role. But despite that, they still ended up using a suit to make him appear even larger than he was. And I know a little bit about the time there because originally they had cast somebody else as Leatherface.
That's sad.
They cast somebody else as Leatherface. They had a heat stroke and threatened to sue the production company. And then they just fired him instead. And
that's like some tea, though.
Yeah, apparently. And Michael Bay apparently said this in an interview very nonchalantly. Like, yeah, so he threatened to sue us, so we fired him. And just like completely, like walked by it.
Oh, my God. That's not great, but okay.
Yeah. And the gentleman that got to work as, the Leatherface we got in this role had worked with Michael Bay previously in another film.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Also, I really appreciate how like big he is in this movie because to me,
he's so big.
Like in the original, to me that was like that's big, and like in this one it's about the same size to me. Where I'm just like he's big, like that's just like a tower. He's terrifying, and that's what I think of when I think of Leatherface.
Me too. And I feel like we haven't gotten that every movie.
We have not. It's been very inconsistent. I think they've tried their best, but
this one he's big.
Oh gosh, terrifying.
Yeah, very large.
Like if I heard ring and like he came running at me, oh my God.
Can I tell you something, Geraldine?
Yeah.
I've been editing, the last couple of episodes, and in an instance, I said that I really like the intro of one of the ones, and with these noises. And then you did the noise.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the noise you just made.
Yeah.
And you do such a good job at it.
Thank you.
I felt like I was watching the movie because I heard you do the noise. You're really good. What is that noise?
I don't know, but they also used it in this one.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the noise.
I do too.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like a camera.
That's what
like
I think.
A really old camera.
That's what I was thinking. Like one of the ones like from, I can't think of his name. It's that one in the Harry Potter movie who like took the camera thing and then he got petrified and he was like frozen.
Yeah.
That's the camera that I imagine it would make that noise, but I could be wrong.
I really like the noise.
I know.
I'm a big fan of the noise. I also like that this movie they reunite Chain and Saw.
Yes, I agree. Because I'm like, why would we separate it anyway?
I think somebody just didn't know how to spell, probably. Or maybe back in the day, we weren't all set on it being one word.
Maybe not. Whatever. So to go back a little bit, they're like, when we were talking about like this debate to like whether or not to leave the dead girl inside the car, what would you personally do?
Well, it depends. It changes throughout different points of the film. We talked about previously hitchhikers. I do tend to be like wanting to help. So I'd probably pick her up if she shot herself like now in 2023.
Yeah.
I would probably call the authorities because otherwise there'd be some situation where like now I'm in trouble because I didn't do things the right way.
Oh, true. True.
But we have cell phones now and all that, so it'd be a lot easier for me than in the 70s. But if I was in their shoes and like it was like, oh yeah, the police are going to be here 2 hours. I don't live in the city. There's no cell phones at all. I'm just driving through, and the police don't seem to care either. I would probably I'd go to the Crawford Mill place, drop her body, leave a note, leave my contact information, and then leave, because it starts approaching the territory where like now you're endangering yourself. And while I have compassion for this person, I think I'd be too worried about myself and like what's gonna happen to me if I stick around.
That makes sense. I think that's fair. I probably would. I don't know. I would probably have to do something like that. I would feel really guilty, but at the same time, like, what can you do?
Yeah, what can you do? Right.
But yeah. So meanwhile, all this is still happening. The sheriff ends up showing up while Aaron and Kemper are at that house.
That's right.
What do you think of the sheriff? Because I obviously hate him.
Wow, the sheriff. Like I said previously, he is very menacing.
Yeah.
He comes off as a little jokey at first. I wasn't sure if he was part of the family or not. I was like, because he does end up just taking the body and leaving. It's not really revealed until later on that he is part of the family. So I don't know if he's dressed up as the sheriff or if he is actually the sheriff and just happens to be a part of this family. But he is very demanding. He talks to them in a very inappropriate way for a police officer.
I agree.
But all this to me is dismissed with it being the 70s. I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure this is how cops used to talk to people back in the day. And the kind of attitude that he has, not necessarily the things he says, but the tone that he carries is, I think, still prevalent today. I think a lot of police officers do have some kind of power trip on people that they come across.
I agree. But yeah, so while this is all happening, we're going back and forth between scenes. This is all happening simultaneously while Aaron and Kemper are still in that house. Old man is being creepy. Something weird happens, and he's like, "Help! Help!" And then he's like fallen off his wheelchair, and he's trying to like empty his like.
It looks like he has a catheter.
Yeah.
And he just emptied it into the toilet, and he needs help to get back on his wheelchair. So if I'm Aaron at this point and I hear these screams in the basement, I pretend not to hear, and I go away.
Well, I don't think it's the basement. It's like right down the hall, but that's still.
Yeah, me neither.
Especially because she tries to help, and then eventually at some point she goes away and comes back, and then he gets himself back up in his damn chair.
I think the crux of this movie is Aaron's compassion.
Yes.
Which leads me to a very odd theme for the film, because it feels like the movie is trying to tell you, don't help people. Because at every turn, Erin, that's what she does, and it gets her into trouble.
Yeah.
From picking up the hitchhiker to helping that old man to yelling at Morgan to comply with the officer. She is constantly, trying to do what she believes is a morally good thing, but lands her in a worse position. Now, I think this could lead somebody to believe that she is naive, and I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think compassion isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
And this movie, I feel like it's trying to tell us that it is.
I think maybe it's just like, I don't know, like a trust your gut kind of thing. Because like, for instance, when they had Pepper, like, when like they had the hitchhiker come in and Pepper kind of said something along the lines of, this doesn't feel right. Trust your gut. You kind of know, like, whenever you put yourself in a position. But to me, I was actually having this conversation at work the other day with some of my coworkers about trusting your gut, and they were like, I don't know how to trust my gut. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I feel like I either get like a or kind of reaction, like this feels good or this does not feel good. But they're like, I can't tell the difference between my anxiety or like being nervous versus like being excited. And I'm like, I understand, but I guess like I just kind of have like this like gut feeling or like this thing in the back of my head saying this is not good.
Right. I think I'm probably opposite then. I think typically I have the same sensation, but usually I think it's the wrong one. Like, I feel like if I like I should not listen to my gut, because usually it's something like, okay, this feels good, this feels right. It's usually the bad one. Maybe my morals are misaligned or something.
Oh my goodness.
But I think that may work on certain people. Maybe it doesn't work on everybody. But you're right. And Morgan, who I think, like I said before, while I like, is annoying a lot of the time and is non-compassionate to like, oh, don't pick her up, or let's just drop her body off here. He ends up being the one who's like right at every turn. If they listened to him, they would have all been alive. Yeah. So I struggle with that a little bit with the theme of the movie. It's not that, it's just a movie. It's not like they're trying to change the world by telling people, don't go out of your way to be nice to people. We have to have a crux of like exposition for all these things to happen.
Right. But I think it's also just a simple like cautionary tale. Just be careful who you trust.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Or be careful who you like put, I don't know, give compassion to, kind of thing. Not that people don't deserve compassion, but I mean, you never know. There could be a secret serial killer, and then you might die. So.
That sounds like a game. Secret serial killer, like a board game or something.
Well, I assume everyone is one until proven otherwise, usually. I'm like, I don't trust you.
Right.
But yeah, so then while all this is happening, old man is like, Erin trying to help him up. He's like inappropriately touching her butt. Yeah. I was like, ew.
We see a lot of that in this movie, because back at the Crawford Mill, the sheriff is also telling
Andy.
The sheriff is also telling Andy about how he used to enjoy rapping these girls back in the day,
like
and that he would cop a feel.
Yeah, and then as he said that, he touched her dead breast.
Yeah, he did. Very inappropriate. Very like. It doesn't make sense either, because he's like, oh yeah, I used to do this. You can't used to do something when you're doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right then. Yeah. And then he also just disgustingly sexualizes the dead girl's body, and like somehow talks about how what she is.
Yeah, like what have you boys been doing? You know what I mean?
But that was because she had a gun up there as well that she pulled out.
It appeared to be very bloody.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just disgusting and uncomfortable, and I was like, ew.
Yeah, it's really gross. And he also had the audacity to like scold. I don't know if it was Erin or Pepper for a bit when they were like, "This is wrong." Yeah. And then she's like, "Look here. I care as much about these dead bodies as anybody else around here, or whatever." And
ironically, he's like, "Put her ass in the trunk."
Yeah. Don't get my car dirty, basically. And then he heads off.
There is that kind of like comedic element to it though, because he's so terrible. But like the way that he says things is kind of funny.
It is funny, especially right here at this part of the movie.
Yeah.
I think he becomes a lot more menacing with our next interaction later on.
Oh God!
When he comes back,
like terrifying. Like makes me like cringe watching it.
Well, Kemper gets himself taken by Leatherface.
He gets bonked.
He gets bonked in the head and then hung downstairs. And I was watching this and I was like, oh, Dead by Daylight. We have the basement, you know? And he gets hooked.
He does get hooked. And then he gets reeled up. And then it's revealed he had an engagement ring in his pocket.
That's right. Yeah.
He was going to propose to Aaron.
He was going to propose. But now he doesn't get to.
Now he doesn't get to. And that made me so sad.
Oh, it did. I wonder if it made Leatherface sad because Leatherface, you know, held up the ring for a second.
Are you kidding? He was probably like, I could get some money off this.
I don't know. In the other films, he seems to be a compassionate person. Like in the first film.
Do you think you could carry compassion and be a killer though?
Oh, definitely. I think killers are probably very compassionate people.
How?
I think
they're like, I'm gonna watch the life go out of your ass, but oh, you were gonna propose.
I think that's where it comes from. I think a lot of these people who end up in these situations are people who, you know, feel betrayed in some way or another.
Well, they do need the compassion because clearly they didn't get it.
Or something like that, yeah. There's a lot of, like, you could argue that in the first Texas Chainsaw movie that Leatherface himself is a victim of a lack of compassion from his family, and that's what drives, you know, him to do the things that he does. And, like, in other movies, he seems to have a misunderstanding of, like, what's going on in general. So, I don't know. I can definitely see Leatherface holding some sort of compassion. This movie, though, they don't show that at all.
They don't show that at all.
It's very much like.
But they do have like the sense of like they want the audience to kind of feel sorry for him because we learned that in this movie his name is like Thomas Hewitt.
Thomas Hewitt. Is this the first time he's given a name?
It's the first time he's given a name. It's the first time we also see him without a mask at some point because
that's right.
He's got a skin disease, is what we've been told.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, so you guys just let him kill people to make masks out of their faces? That's what you guys have just resorted to?
I think he was just born into an awful family. Yeah, is what it looks like. But the skin disease aspect, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of. Like,
it was thrown together. I didn't feel like they fleshed that story out very much.
Me neither. I feel like they just gave him I think at this time, it's like any villain needed to be hideous. For whatever reason, and I don't think, like you say, maybe if it was a little more fleshed out, it would have made more sense to me. But they didn't really do anything with it. They were just, oh look, he looks like this, just to look like this, just to be scary.
With this next one, they do show the beginning, is what it's called. So they do have more of a backstory for Leatherface as well.
Right.
So maybe that's kind of why they did it that way, to set up that, because it's like a prequel essentially. So to kind of set up that story of what happened to him growing up. So I think if in terms of that might be the only reason why they did that, but
maybe
I could be wrong.
We'll see.
I could be wrong, but yeah, this whole basement and all of the tools and stuff is just really creepy. Like they really make him so creepy in this movie, and I love it. However, I'm upset that we do get multiple masks because he ends up making a mask out of Kemper's face.
That is right. Yeah, that really took
horrible.
me off. Yeah, it was
horrible, but also like really cool as far as like the horrific elements, but like very sad because like now Aaron sees Leatherface with her boyfriend's face on his face.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know how I would literally be like too distraught to run. I'd be like, bro, that's my boyfriend's face. I'm so sad.
I wonder if he did that to scare Aaron because he found the ring. So obviously, you know, somebody else in the group, you know, has a love interest in him. And so is he being cruel here? Or do you think he's trying to fool her and be like, look, I'm Kemper, your boyfriend?
I think it's to be cruel. But I mean, then again, it's so hard. He's such a complex character. And I don't want to give like the writers that much credit because I don't know if like they've really put so much. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, obviously there's a disconnect no matter what. So I mean, theoretically, it would be horrible whichever way.
Yeah. So Aaron comes back to the Crawford Mill and is looking for Kemper. Apparently, he's not there. Everybody else is like, okay, give me the keys. We got to get out of here. We're leaving.
I would be so offended. Like, if it was my partner that went missing and I'm like, what?
But what if it wasn't your partner? Wouldn't you want to get the heck out of there?
I'd be freaking out, but I would want to help them find their partner.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I say that now, but maybe
I don't know. I could see you freaking out and be like, I don't care. Especially if it's somebody you don't like or don't care.
If it's somebody I don't like, I'm getting the hell out of there.
I knew it. I already knew it, dude. But, Aaron...
But what would you do? You didn't answer.
I would help.
Even if it's someone you didn't like?
If it's my worst enemy, yeah.
What? He's just saying that to make himself look better.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll find out. Even if it was you, Geraldine, I'd go out and try to find you,
That's so rude.
I think this is kind of silly here, not Gary.
Andy,
ends up being like, okay, yeah, we got to go get him. So Andy and Aaron team up to go back to the house and get Kemper. Mm-hmm. And right before they go, Morgan plays a little prank on him, reaching inside the headlight and pretending like something's sucking him in.
So shitty, but it was funny.
This is not the moment for that, dog.
Not the moment at all.
Not the moment for a joke. But inside there ended up being like a jar with a photograph of the hitchhiker they had picked up earlier.
And then like on the back, it was like her family.
Yeah. Which
is revealed later. There was a baby in that family, and Leatherface's shitty family stole that baby.
And kept the baby. Yeah. They want to raise this stolen baby.
Which is really sad, because I bet it misses its family.
I don't know. Babies don't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Have you ever been around a baby that's like, they know their mom and dad, right? They know their parents. They know their family. Nah. And I'm telling you, they do. Because they have favorite people. My niece growing up, her favorite people have always been my sister, my stepdad.
And you?
No. I always made her mad. I'm not going to lie.
You what?
I made her mad a lot. Because I just would smother her with love and kisses. I would just be like,
See, you're the villain here. You remember when we were talking about can villains have compassion? Here it is.
I'm not a villain. Am I the villain?
To that little baby you were.
No. I just loved her so much. But like she just had favorite people, and like if she did not want to go to you, she would cry if someone tried to like hold her that was not who she wanted to go to at the moment. That's just typically how babies respond. They know, they're like and that they're like, give me away, and they cry.
Well, this baby seemed pretty chill. You know what I'm saying?
It does seem chill, but I think it's also confused and like traumatized, maybe. I don't know.
I don't remember anything before age 12.
Okay, but do some EMDR and you'll remember that shit.
I don't know. EMDR, what does that stand for?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So you go back into your memories and you get to a place like you can remember your earliest memories, and then you are in that memory and you reprocess it as you are now as an adult. So it's good for like trauma. Processing trauma, because like a lot of people will repress it, and then it will affect them later.
Well, I'm a big advocate of repressing childhood. It's worked for me, and so this EMR, EMS, whatever thing you're talking about, I'm not a fan. I'll pass. So anybody out there, if you're struggling with a hard time, repress. That's my advice to you.
That's terrible.
No, it's not. It's good advice.
Anyway, the baby is like, it's chill, but maybe we think it looks chill, but it ain't chill. I don't know. I don't know. This whole situation where they split up, you just know you're not supposed to split up in movies, and they always seemingly do it, and it stresses me out.
Yeah, they split up. Morgan and Pepper stay behind, and they clean the car. How nice of them. Doesn't seem to be in their characters. Pepper could barely stand to be in the car. And then Morgan doesn't seem like he would want to do that. But they end up doing it. This is one of the last things they do with their lives.
Probably to pass the time,
Yeah, what else are you going to do in the 70s, You don't got Snapchat. You don't got TikTok. Meanwhile, Aaron and Andy are back inside the house. They're trying to sneak around in there.
Well, she's like just like distracting the old man.
Yeah, she's distracting him outside while Andy goes inside.
Andy goes in there and raises some hell. I was like, bro, he makes so much noise.
Yeah, he's making a little too much noise, and he's a little too curious. Like, he dips his fingers in some random red goop and like Sniffs him. I think he might even lick it. I forget.
No, he didn't lick it.
He did lick it?
No, he did not.
Oh, okay. I thought he might have licked it.
No.
And I was like, my guy, you're a little too invested here.
I would simply not. I would not be doing this.
Oh, yeah, me neither. But he makes enough noise that they end up going back inside Aaron and the older gentleman that lives there. And it's like, what are you doing in my house?
Yeah. He freaks out.
He freaks out. And, they get a little agitated. So Leatherface comes out, starts chasing Andy. And I got to say, we were talking about how messy, this family is. I think we might have spoken too early. Because they definitely do their laundry. And they have white sheets that they hang up outside.
Oh, yeah, this linen scene.
And it's pristine. The sheets are clean. They obviously care deeply about their laundry. So maybe we spoke too soon. Anyway, Andy is using it, kind of as a maze to run away from.
He's trying to loop the killer. He does not do so well.
He doesn't do so well. I think he made a big mistake. I don't know why you would circle back to your enemy here, but he gets his leg cut clean off.
That literally made, I was like, oh. There's so much anxiety, the idea of being chased and you're running through an obstacle and they're also running through an obstacle and you're like, oh no, where am I going
Really?
Yeah,
I feel like I do well, but that might just be my man, I can do anything kind of attitude coming out or whatever. But yeah, he gets his leg chopped off, taken to the basement and hung on a different hook.
Yeah, he gets hooked.
Yeah,
and then he tries to do the Dead by Daylight thing.
Oh, thing God,
yeah.
Where he tries to take himself off the hook, but it doesn't quite work.
Falls back on.
See, that was the painful part for me.
Oh, he'd really tried. I felt so bad for him too. He didn't deserve it.
No, and I think the actor's performance here was very nice. Really sold it to me.
Yeah, I was just like, oof. I can only imagine how steaming hot that downstairs is too.
Oh, probably Texas in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, and it's the 70s. Could you imagine how they would live through our summers now?
No.
Because I don't think they were near as bad back then because, we have climate change.
Those actors, like I said, the original guy was having a heat stroke back then, so I can't imagine what it'd be like now.
Our summers now in 2023 are ridiculous.
Yeah. I haven't felt it, though, if I'm being honest. It's been really hot. But for whatever reason, this year, I'm it's not really bugging me or anything.
You just haven't taken a deep breath in the hot summer air yet, because that air quality is fucking shit.
Is it?
Yeah, it's awful.
I wouldn't know.
It's so muggy. It just feels
like a barometer,
It just feels there was one day that I think recently it was 90 something, and it was feels like 106, and I was like, oh my god, that's ridiculous.
I don't know. It really hasn't been bugging me. I haven't been minding it at all.
I hate the summertime. I hate it.
Yeah.
I would much rather it be cold. I can put more clothes on. I can't.
What about the pool?
What about the pool?
You can't be in the pool in December.
You can get a heated pool, or you can just get in a hot tub.
Devil's advocate, I don't know how to swim. So I am also not too fond of the summer. But this one has been my favorite one so far.
Why?
Because just the heat has not been bothering me.
He's lying to you guys.
I'm not.
He's got to be lying. It's been crazy hot. Anyway, but I just imagine how hot it would be in that basement, especially with all of the water down there too. Ugh, so stinky. I bet it's the stinkiest place to be.
Oh, probably. Now that would get me more than the heat. Is the smell.
I can't do smells.
Yeah.
If something smells really bad. For example, when I drive home, there's this one spot that I pass. It's I call it the bog of eternal stench. It's a reference to the labyrinth. It smells awful. It literally smells like swamp ass. I don't know. I think it's literally some sort of sewage plant or something nearby. It smells so bad. And every day that I pass it, I'm like, ugh.
Well, you turn on the internal air, and that way air from outside won't come in.
It doesn't really...
Doesn't help.
Doesn't help.
Wow.
I still smell it. Still creeps on in.
You just stop breathing for 2 minutes.
No, I just have to complain about it for the 2 minutes that I smell it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I don't know. Just smells. They get me. Especially in the summertime. It's even worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's hot,
Yeah, so I can't... I can... This would be my nightmare. This movie.
I think this would be a lot of people's nightmare. Not necessarily because of the heat, the smell, but the murder.
Yeah, that's you.
The
that's
murder.
you.
Yeah, that's very
I mean, Leatherface is scary in this one.
Leatherface is scary in this one. The last three, he wasn't the scariest.
No, he wasn't.
Honest,
and he wasn't really the star of the show or anything.
No, and even in this one, though, I feel like he shares his spotlight.
I guess so, but...
Well, Erin makes her way back to the Crawford Mill. She tries to start the car, is unable to. And then the sheriff shows up, and for a second, she's thankful. She's like, oh, good, the police is here.
Oh, and her performance in this car scene right there, like, she's really panicking, and she's freaking out, she's crying. She can't really make a lot of sense of things. She's just trying to explain everything.
I always criticize this kind of thing. Because in my head, it's always like, we gotta go. And I'm like, okay, calm down. If you express yourself like properly for a second, maybe we could get somewhere.
Oh my God, you're judging someone's reaction to that?
Look, I can't because I've been in this situation where I was being chased by a chainsaw murderer. No, but I have been in a similar situation where I'm freaking out and I need to call the police.
Okay.
And when I look back on it, I'm just thinking to myself, it was just like, we got to call the cops or something like whatever. And that's all I was saying. And so to me, it makes sense to me that, somebody can't get their words out. But as a viewer of a film, I'm just like, girl, please just take a second, just take a breath real quick. Oh my gosh.
Well, I would be panicking too. I think I've told you this before.
Okay.
But as a kid, sometimes if I got so scared, I would call for my parents and that thing would come out. No, have I not told you that?
I don't think so.
Okay. So it would happen typically bath time when I was a little kid. They would leave the door open so that they could just walk by and make sure I was okay. Because typically as a kid, you're just doing playtime in the bathtub. And that's just kind of how you get clean until your parents come in and they wash your hair, help you wash your body, that kind of thing. Well, I was playing with my stuff in the bathtub, all my little toys, little rubber duckies, shit like that. And I saw some supernatural stuff and freaked out. And I literally went to go say my parents' name. I was nothing would come out.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It's terrifying because I was so scared nothing would come out of my mouth. Is that not I feel like I would either do that.
That's probably good for you. Because imagine the opposite, where you get scared and you can make nothing but loud noises. You know what I mean? If you're so scared that that would help you hide. If nothing comes out, you're trying to be in a corner in the shadow somewhere.
You know what kills me though? When people are so scared of movies and they're they're covering their mouth to keep from being so loud, and then they're just breathing so loud through their nose. I'm like, they're gonna hear you.
I remember when we were watching the Scream movies, you were so mad that they were scared.
Well, I mean, I understand being scared. I would be scared too, but do something. I don't understand. I don't want them to get caught. Yeah. And I'm there with them with the anxiety.
Well, it's because you have that opposite reaction where you just can't make any noise, So
Probably.
in a way, you're privileged. You're blessed.
Well,
but that does sound scary. Yeah. What was the phenomenon that you witnessed?
Oh, it was. I can't say now.
Oh, why not?
It sounds silly, and people would not believe me.
Do you still believe what you saw then?
Yes, I still believe what I saw then.
Oh, that makes me so curious.
What makes it worse is someone else in my family said they saw it too at some point.
Oh no!
But I can't tell people because it sounds silly. So
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, because I don't want people to laugh at me because people already are haters against me on the pod. So
Geraldine has a lot of haters.
Everyone's like, this dumb bitch, and I'm like,
I wonder why, Geraldine.
All I do is breathe, and they're like, say again, bitch.
Yeah, you're right. She gets some hate comments sometimes.
I do get haters, but it's fine. I'm just existing and they just hate it. So it's more funny than anything now. At first I would get my feelings hurt and be like, oh my God,
nobody likes me.
Nobody likes me. But now I'm like, whatever. But yeah. So yeah, all of this is happening and the sheriff is back, and this is when the acting just really, the moment that I was like, this is some good acting.
This is the standout scene in the movie for me.
1,000%.
Yeah.
The tears, the snot, you could tell they were fearful.
Yeah.
Because the sheriff, makes them all get down on the ground, and he's like going through their IDs, and they're all from different places: Arizona, Colorado, New York.
That's right.
And then he's like interrogating them, but like they're trying to explain themselves, and he just keeps like berating them and like insulting them. And oh man, I just would have been so scared.
He's being so rough with them. Their faces are in the dirt. Like, and there's, so the dust is getting in their noses and their eyes and their mouth. I think the actress that portrays Erin, Jessica Biel, I think she lost her voice, because when I was watching the movie, she definitely was having a hard time screaming and yelling, like what are you doing? Like, this isn't right. And I think it really lends itself to the performance, because it really sold it to me like this girl is distraught. Yeah. With the way this officer is treating them. Fast forward, I don't know how many years now, 20 years? Yeah, 20 years now that this movie has been made.
That's crazy.
There's a lot of referential, things around the culture of police enforcement and, taking advantage of the power that you hold. Yeah. And I don't know how much this movie, was thinking that it was, talking on that kind of topic, but you definitely see an abuse of power. With the sheriff, because in Erin's nature, her as a character, she wants to, believe in the officer. So she's confused, all get out. Like, she's like, why is this happening? This person's supposed to help me. Morgan ends up, the sheriff ends up pulling Morgan up and wanting him to recreate the nature of the suicide that the hitchhiker took. And he said he doesn't have much of an imagination. So he forces him to like sit like on the guts that was like left on the chair, like in the right position. He wants Morgan to hold the gun, put the gun in his mouth. Yes. And Morgan's performance here is just stellar. He appears to be so scared. He looks like he doesn't want to do the next thing. And it's such a slow, tense, suspenseful moment.
Yeah. I mean, according to my trivia here that's in front of me, Jonathan Tucker, the actor who portrayed Morgan, forced the gun down his throat in order to make himself vomit every take. And if you watch like carefully, you can see some vomit coming out of his mouth in the scene. But I mean, I didn't even know it was vomit to me. I just thought it was like just intense, like spit. Like he was just like so like I don't know, just really putting his all.
Yeah, really dedicated to the scene.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like I said, the officer was just so intimidating.
Oh my god.
Like just scary, if I'm being honest. And he didn't even have a chainsaw. He didn't really have anything,
No, it was just his, I don't know, just his demeanor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which makes it even more terrifying.
So to me, that's why like between him and Leatherface, I feel like he has more of the spotlight in this movie, because I just think his performance is just so scary.
It is scary. And then Erin kind of figures that something's like off, so then she gets up and is trying to like ask Morgan if he's okay, and of course the police officer, like Sheriff Hoyt, is like yelling at them to get back down, and then Pepper gets up, and then somehow during this scene Morgan ends up moving the gun and pointing it at the sheriff, and I was like, oh.
Now, Pepper and Erin disagree with what should happen next.
They do.
Erin keeps on telling, she's the good moral person. She's like, put the gun down. Mm-hmm. And then Pepper is telling him to shoot him.
What would you do? I would.
Me?
Yeah.
In this situation in the 70s, I would shoot the man.
Shoot him.
I don't believe he's a police officer.
Exactly.
Right. And he's, putting me in danger. Right?
Exactly.
And even when it's revealed that there is no bullets in this gun, it's still a metal gun.
But it's still really, you still could like knock him.
Yeah, exactly. I would try to hurt him with it.
But the idea that like he actually went forth with it, because he was like, I don't think you're gonna do anything, and then like it's revealed that he did, like he tried and there was nothing there. It was just so intense. And then we get this infamous line from the sheriff: well, looky here, we got ourselves a killer. And I was like, what? Because he obviously doesn't believe these people, but he's just trying to get under their skin and like break them down.
Yeah, and he's good at it. That man,
Very good
apparently, that actor that portrays the sheriff, he improv'd a lot of his lines in the movie. And to know that, I'm like, well, this man is obviously just a great actor.
Yeah.
Like they know how to give a great performance. They know how to fill in, and he just really understood the character.
Oh gosh, I mean, he took the original character that we got and just like took it up so many notches because
It was scary.
It was scary, and I was like, I can't even imagine. Like, first of all, men scare me in general, but
Yeah, they're terrifying.
yeah, and then cops also scare me as well. But then to have an old man and a cop and like all of it combined and like there's just something about him that is just so scary.
I think part of it, it's interesting because I think part of the fear of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the franchise is that there's this group of innocent people that come across this thing that could make it feel like it could happen to anybody. Like you can find yourself in this situation. And I think they kind of recreated that magic with his character being an officer, where like Aaron, when he sees him for the first time, she thinks, oh, things are going to go good. But you can kind of see yourself in a situation where there's some kind of misunderstanding with a police officer. And obviously they have a weapon. So like there's some... If there confusion is dangerous in these moments, miscommunication is dangerous when you're interacting with people in this situation. And this is where I'm talking about identity earlier, where like I feel like if you're of a certain skin color or class or situation, that your actions might be a little different. Like for example, I know a lot of people are taught that like if do everything a police officer says, no matter what, to protect yourself. Because if the second you veer off from what they want you to do, you're endangering yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think sometimes that's followed to a fault. And so I think watching this scene through 2023 eyes, I think is especially I don't know the word, like still prominent in the culture or whatever.
I agree. He does a fantastic job. Oh man, he's just terrifying. But like this whole scene, everyone's acting is just, you really feel like you're there with them and you're like panicked too because you're like, oh my god, what is
like you could be in this situation? It feels like and like it feels like you could be across this gentleman.
But they left the keys in the van. Sheriff takes them, so that really sucks. And then he takes Morgan with him. And this scene is just painful in general because after this, like, Morgan is kind of like trying to argue his case to be alive a little bit, but not really in that sense. It was more like an accidental bribery, like, oh yeah, we're going to the Leonard Skinner concert. I'll give you the tickets. Yeah. And the cop's like, oh yeah, something we got in common. And then he's like drinking and driving, of course. He takes this glass bottle and like backhands it like across his face, knocks his glasses off, like, painful, and it like breaks some of his teeth. And oh man,
I think this is another thing that makes the character scary. It's just like this is a moment of like it's brutal in the sense of like it seems like pure reaction. Like this officer just did that out of a whim, like like they didn't think about doing it. It's just like there's something like some anger or something that made them respond that way. Which is real. Some people respond with anger like that.
It was just so hard to watch because then Morgan he was compliant up until that point where he was like, "Oh, I'll shoot you."
He's just about broken at this point. He appears like he's, this whole thing. Everybody's doing the opposite of what he thinks they should do. And at this point, like, with this interaction with this officer where he thought, finally I have the upper hand here, maybe things will go right. There's no bullet in the gun. Now he's with this officer and driving, and he's trying to, make at least like one kind of effort to connect with him in some way, with like giving him tickets or bribing him or something, and that doesn't work. So he's really on the edge, I feel like. The police officer ends up calling and saying, I think I forgot the term. It's like the term for like baby horses or baby cows or something. The fillies, the two fillies are are good to go.
I didn't know.
I think a filly is a baby horse, a girl baby horse.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
The more you know.
But yeah, I didn't know what that meant. I thought that it was just like some gross term for women or something. I don't know.
Maybe some people use it like that. I know people say the word heifer, which is like, I think it's a woman cow. And people use that as a, way to put people down.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, and then he ends up calling Morgan later the F slur, which I did not like, but that's just kind of his nature, the cop's nature. That, I don't know. And then Erin is like, what's it called? Hot wiring a car. And then she tries to get going. And this scene was really tense too, because once they get going, tires start falling off.
That's right. They don't go anywhere.
They don't go anywhere.
No.
And then about that time, Leatherface shows up wearing Kemper's face.
Yeah. And, he starts chainsawing the car up and down. Pepper eventually gets out, runs down, but Leatherface catches her and then chainsaws her. And then when he looks back, Erin sees that he's wearing her, almost soon-to-be fiance's face as a mask.
Like devastating, truly devastating. I would not be okay.
Yeah. I rewinded this to see it first because I didn't notice it at the very first. Like at the first time I saw it, I had to be like, oh my gosh, what is he wearing? Like it looks different. And then it zooms in and I'm like, oh. And then I did it again. I rewinded it because I was like, oh, that's the guy's face. Mm-hmm. And they did a good job recreating, that. Yeah. I think it did look like her boyfriend.
It was terrifying. So yeah, R.I.P. Pepper. Big sad.
Yeah.
They do this gigantic chase through the woods, kind of similar to how they do it in the original.
Oh yeah.
But then similar to part 3, we meet the family, like the other redneck family people. So it's like, she seems like a grandmother or something, and then like a redneck kind of mom situation, and they have the baby there. They end up like drugging her with tea.
Yeah. They end up drugging her with tea. This is where it's revealed that the baby's been stolen. And she wakes up at their house, and the whole family's there. You have Leatherface, the sheriff, the gas station register person.
So that was the mom, and I didn't realize that because like the sheriff says something like, because she like presses his pants for her. And he's like, "Thank you, Mama."
Yeah. And I think this girl likes me, Mama, something like that.
Yeah.
To Erin.
So I'm assuming Leatherface and the sheriff are brothers, I would assume.
I'm not sure.
Because the little kid, Jedediah, calls her grandma. So that's got to be...
That would make sense to me. I've heard some people think it's his wife. Because, some people call their wives mama because, you got the kid. So you call
but then, like, would the old man in the wheelchair be grandpa? I don't know. Like... So there's a little bit of like...
They don't make it clear. I don't think it's important. I heard somebody even say like, oh, who's Jedediah's father? Is it Leatherface? I didn't get that vibe at all, but
I didn't either. I feel like that'd be crossing some like boundaries that I don't want to cross.
Oh, okay.
I'd be like, I don't, because especially if I don't know, like he has any sort of like mental mental disability or anything, and people would take advantage of that. That just is really sickening to me.
Right.
Especially if the theory goes, as we've been saying in the previous films, that he may or may not know what he's doing. Right. Then that he would be a victim to a lot of different things. So that would just open a can of worms that I would be not ready to talk about, because that would be
fair enough.
It'd be really sad.
It'd be really complicated.
It'd be very complicated, very sad, and so I'd hope that Jedediah is not his child. Hoping it's just the disgusting sheriff's kid or something.
Right. Well, this grandma or whoever she is ends up telling Leatherface to throw Erin into the basement, as he does. And Erin in the basement finds Andy hung up, only one leg, and he, they try to get him off the hook one last time, and he's like, "Look, girl, I'm a goner. Like, go ahead, do me in." She's really hesitant to do it, but she does eventually grab a knife and doesn't provide much of a mercy killing, in my opinion. I was thinking about this the whole time. I was like, he wants her to kill him. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so what do you want her to do here?
Like, to me, you could try to reach up. I mean, she's got it's like a decently long knife. You could reach up and slit his throat. That'd be
Is that better?
The jugular, that's like a fast way to go, I thought.
I don't know. And
Or
also,
the heart?
Yeah, first of all, there's no communication here either. Like they're not even, there's no specifics. You know what I'm saying? Like he's telling her to kill him, but like you gotta tell me how. Like what do you want here?
Oh my god!
But she ends up just stabbing him through the belly, which in this movie world is an instant kill. Apparently, he dies immediately.
That wouldn't happen that way.
No, he would just be stabbed in the stomach and suffer. She didn't save him from anything.
I thought about that too, but I was like, that's not really what I think you wanted, but
no.
I guess go off.
I would have rather hung in there.
Also, I noted that we had so many different locations in this film.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah, we do have a lot more than the first one for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like, we go to the slaughterhouse, a random house that also Morgan...
Okay.
Theoretically, they never alluded to his death.
Interesting.
Because he's probably still hanging somewhere on that little chandelier.
I doubt it. So you're right. You know, Aaron ends up finding Morgan down there in a bathtub.
Yeah.
He looks like he's already been hooked too.
Yeah.
He completely broken. You know, he looks like he's just done.
A shell of a man at this point.
Exactly. And she helps him up, and they kind of escape with the help of Jedediah. They escape the house.
Apparently, they wanted Leatherface to kill Jedediah in the original script, but they thought it would be too intense.
A little too far, isn't it?
I mean,
oh my gosh, this girl's just bloodthirsty. Geraldine just is like, you
know. I wouldn't want him to kill the kid, but I mean, like, I just watched Evil Dead Rise, and they involved kids, so
yeah,
you could have done it. It would have been fine.
Yeah, they did it in 2023. I was surprised.
I was too. I liked it though, but they thought equal playing field.
That really, I was, because you know there's 3 kids in that.
Yeah.
I'm not, no spoilers. I'm not. It's came out this year. I won't talk about it.
It's on Max. Go watch it on Max.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think it would have been a little too far if they killed Jedediah, and unnecessary. He ends up just throwing him, you know, just kind of giving him.
Yeah, that was really funny. I'm not gonna lie. He was just kind of like.
Yeah. And you know, we get into this chase sequence with Aaron and Morgan being chased by Leatherface.
Very long.
I think they make several mistakes.
Okay.
First of all, don't go into a building at all. Like, you're a lot likelier to like be able to hide in the shadows of the woods. If you're in a house, like if I'm looking for something, like an established location, it's the first place I'd look at. You know, like if I lost my keys and I've been out and about all day, I'm more likely to go back and revisit the McDonald's or the mall than I am the sidewalk that I walked up to get into my car. You know what I'm saying? So I think going inside the buildings was a bad idea, especially when this is in an area that they don't know, and Leatherface obviously does.
That's true.
So they go into this house, and I'm reminded again that this movie is literally the basis of Dead by Daylight, because we have the hooks, we have the basement, and we also have hiding in lockers.
Yeah.
In this movie, where you know Morgan gets put into a locker and.
No, he gets put in a closet.
A closet.
The locker doesn't happen until the slaughterhouse.
Right.
But that was also.
It makes
you
think of the lockers in Dead by Daylight. He gets put into this closet inside of a bedroom while she hides.
Oh my god! And listen, I have warmed up to the idea of like ever having like a pet rat in my life because I love Ratatouille. But like the idea of like rats or mice in places that I'm not expecting them to be, and there's multiple crawling all over me. I would simply be screaming my head off.
You think so?
Yes.
So you would have lost it
I've had
here.
like nightmares of like rats crawling over my body and stuff like that. Like I used to be really afraid of them, and I'm not as afraid of them now because the idea of like domesticating them and having them as pets and making them little tiny objects, like little tiny pancakes and stuff like that.
You just
that
get a hamster.
Fun. No, I want a ratatouille. He can be on my shoulder.
You think he'd love you?
I think I would. I think he would.
Like Jackie loves you?
Like Jackie loves me. Jackie's insane and loves me.
But yeah, she gets a lot of rats that crawl up on her. What ends up happening here?
What ends up happening is Leatherface ends up trying to go towards where Morgan is hiding, and Aaron's like, oh no. So then she moves one of the rats, and that rat squeals.
That's right.
Then she's like peeping out of the peephole, is like looking to see if Leatherface is coming. So then she backs up against the wall, go figure, and then boom, and he like pulls her out.
Pulls her out from the other side of the wall.
Yeah, which is unrealistic but cool, I guess.
Yeah. Morgan tries to save her. You know, she kind of admits defeat here. She's like, "Go run, get out of here," you know. But he decides not to. He decides to save Aaron.
But like, she leaves him.
She tries to help too. She's not very effective at the help because when she gets up, she looks like she's really just dusting Leatherface off, like his jacket, like, you know, but she's tapping on him, trying to get him off Morgan. It's not very useful.
Because then he ends up like
hooking.
Morgan's got like his hands tied together, so then he ends up just hooking him to this like chandelier,
Yeah.
which theoretically it wouldn't hold, especially with this house being as old and dusty and dilapidated as it is.
Yeah. And it looks like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that Leatherface like does like chainsaw him a little.
I think he goes to do that, but I think she ends up like saying, "Hey, come get me."
Mm-hmm. And she runs to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
Which she's pretty good at parkour, and she knows her way around this place a lot better than I thought she would. But when she gets inside, Leatherface catches her leg, which surprises me because I'm like, you weren't anywhere near her.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're right behind her, you know?
But I'm sure him knowing the slaughterhouse, he might have like the tricks of the trade. He might know some like little secret nooks and crannies. Which
does look like it because, she tries hiding across like a lot of pork, but he takes,
oh man,
because they go into a freezer. And, I don't know why she's scared of the pork, but she appears to be terrified of meat.
Maybe she's a vegan. I don't know.
Let me think. Maybe you're right. I can't think of a situation where she had come across some food.
But I mean, I don't think they've eaten once in the movie. But it's always a weird thing when you
think about that in movies.
No, not really. But sometimes I think about I don't know. I just now noticed that. I'm like, wow, I don't think they ate at all. I probably would have been starving.
Oh yeah, with all that running, being chased.
Oh my god, yeah. No water either.
Nothing. It's hot summer.
It's a hot summer day.
That's right.
I'd be a goner.
Well, you know what? Erin gives Leatherface quite a chase.
She does.
After they end up exiting the slaughterhouse, Leatherface trips, hurts himself a little bit.
Cuts his leg.
And
apparently that was an homage to the original, but I didn't remember that.
You know what? I didn't either, Geraldine, but I think it does happen.
I just don't remember when that happened.
Why is that such a forgettable part? But I think you're right. I think it is in there. I'm just not remembering it.
Correct us if we're wrong, I guess. I don't know. But she does the whole Dead by Daylight thing in the locker, which was a cool scene. It was a very cool scene.
It is very cool. She ends up finding a cleaver in there. Mm-hmm. And tries to rattle it around a little bit so gets Leatherface's attention. And I think her strat here is to he opens the door and then hatches him. But I think it's random that he comes across a pig. I
feel like maybe she may have found one and put it there.
Oh.
But yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. But I feel like that's the only logical explanation.
I thought it was going to be a possum because earlier in the film somebody opened it up and there was a possum. That makes more sense to me. But it was just a normal pig just chilling in a locker.
I love pigs. They're so cute.
They are pretty cute.
We don't deserve them. But he opens that locker. He's individually opening lockers.
That's right.
And then she sees him do that, and then she jumps out and just starts hacking away at his arm.
And tears his arm off.
Horrible, but cool.
What did you think about this? It's so interesting that Leatherface, he's the star of Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. And he usually I feel like in a lot of these he dies or is implied to be dead. And in this one they go as far as to tear his arm off. I get it, you have to win over the villain somehow, but then how are you going to make more movies?
Well, that's what reimaginings are for and stuff
that's
like that.
Every one of them, they gotta oh, never mind that never happened.
They're forget this timeline, here's a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget this family, here's a new one.
They do that so much in Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of the fun of it, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, I would love a cohesive story too. I get it.
Yeah.
Let's see, my brain, I'm forgetting where I was. Oh yeah, so then she ends up getting out of there after that because he's in pain. She finds a big semi truck, a big 18-wheeler kind of situation.
That's a big one.
And she's like, stop. And then he's like, oh my God, I'll get you somewhere. So then they get in the truck, and then she says the same things that the hitchhiker girl from the very beginning says. Where she's like, I just want to go home.
Now, I have opinions on this,
okay.
And they're not positive ones.
Oh, okay.
Where I appreciate the circling back. Because she starts acting like the girl that we saw at the
No,
beginning.
I appreciate it too.
So I like the circling back, but it just makes no sense to me in the context where the girl at the beginning of the film seemed very like she was very out of it. Like, you know, we just talked about food. Maybe she was dehydrated. She was, you know, broken like Morgan was, you know, with all this stuff. But Erin did not seem remotely with that kind of demeanor. She seemed, you know, very invigorated, lots of energy. You know what I mean? She seemed like she was completely self-aware of what's going on. And so for her to suddenly go like, oh, like, no, like, it's just, she becomes a drone. And I don't think that happens like 3 seconds after having just been chased.
But you don't think that for a moment that after she's like, okay, I'm safe, that like her like fight or flight, all of these like fight or flight, I meant like fight or flight, actual trauma responses.
I can't say that anymore.
I know. It's so hard to say it. All of the trauma responses that she could have had like kind of clicked at some point. Because I mean, whenever she was definitely enacting a little bit of that flight, but more so that a little bit of the fight, but more so the flight kind of thing where she's running for her life. But you don't think for a moment that after she sat with it, her body's kind of like in this state of shock and she could kind of be like, oh, I just want to go home.
I don't think it was shut down that far. I can see that happening, but not in an instant, which is what happens in the movie. Like I could see like, you know, 10 minutes down the road, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, and then you're in shutting down after that. But like, it's like a snap in the fingers. They just made it happen to have that circling back moment, which I like the moment. It just doesn't feel deserved to me.
Fair. That makes sense. But yeah, so then he ends up taking her to the gas station and she does the same thing where she like tries to swerve and everything. And then he's like, lady, you're being crazy.
You're going the wrong way. Yeah.
And then we see the sheriff, the mom, and the crazy lady who stole the baby. Her name is Henrietta, actually. I forgot. They did mention her name in the movie.
Yeah.
So we see Henrietta, mama character, whatever her name is, and then the sheriff in the gas station. Trucker is like, I got a girl, and she's real bloody, and I saved her, and she needs help. And they're all like, oh, gosh. And they all like, sheriff tries to go out there slowly. And then Henrietta has to go get the mom her jacket. Right. Mom gets her jacket. Then they all go outside for no real reason, but it's just to make the movie go
yeah, it's so that Erin could come get the baby.
Erin has the opportunity to steal the baby back. And then she somehow gets around the gas station to get in the sheriff's car, hot wires it. This is a really badass moment, though.
I really enjoy, you know, the scene. Like, one of my biggest praises for this film is the cinematography. And I think the editing here is done very well.
Yeah.
Where
you're going back and forth.
It's misleading you to think that she's trying to hotwire the 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
Because that's where the sheriff is about to check with his gun. But when he opens the door, there's nobody in there to be revealed.
And she has hotwired the car at that point, goes and like runs into him, which this to me was like a callback to The Next Generation. With Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, wow. I didn't catch that. I think you're right.
Because she runs over him, runs back over him, runs over him again.
Right.
And then that was the end.
Now, I know this is supposed to be a catharsis moment for the audience. You know, somebody gets their comeuppance. But for me, like in real life, I'm like, I'm not risking this car getting messed up. Like, I'm trying to get out of here.
That's fair, but I feel like I would do that. I would do this as well.
Do you think so? You think you'd have it in you? Now, we do get one last shot of Leatherface.
You know what I'm wondering, though? Because she's running off in the sheriff car. I wonder if that dead girl is still in the trunk.
Oh, wow.
I just not thought of that.
I didn't either, because you don't see her again. Maybe she might be back there.
But let's be honest. In that family, Leatherface probably already has her.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Leatherface does show up again one last time in the middle of the road. He has one arm, and he's swinging his chainsaw. And this is just like... one of the biggest jump scare moments in the whole movie. I did not. I was like, okay, everything's safe now. The safe music is playing, and then out of nowhere, you get sparks flying because Leatherface is there.
Yeah, and then we end up with ending narration and another newscast, and then we find out like, oh, this is the only photo that we have of Thomas, whatever his name is, Hewitt. Yeah. And because it kills the newscasters or whatever, which is also crazy.
Right.
It's wild.
So yeah, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 2003.
Yeah.
Now, to give my thoughts on the movie,
Okay.
I enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
I think it's a very competent film where, like I said previously, I think the cinematography is particularly astounding. However, it feels like it's the best thing about the movie in sense of quality. Like, I feel like the storytelling is okay. So what I think about it is it's very basic. But the things that it does, I think it does well.
I agree.
I don't think it's doing anything too special. But I think there is a lot of things that they got right, including like the performance for the officer, Leatherface's stature, like his attitude, the craftsmanship that we see for Leatherface. So the world building, for example. I think the idea of having his family be this big group of people and, they're all involved some way or another, I think is interesting. I think the characters that we got for this movie, for the young adults that, end up going through this tragedy, I think they have a lot more development than the original characters in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So all that being said, over here, gentlemen, what did you think about the movie overall?
Overall, I really enjoy it. I've watched it growing up. It definitely is terrifying. It's terrifying in nature. The cop is very menacing, like we said. I don't know, just Leatherface just does something to me in this one. Like, I was like, oh, he's so scary. And just this idea that like you said, like the kind of compassion thing, like you don't know who to trust kind of thing. Right. It does instill that fear where you're like, don't be so trusting a little bit. So there's that sense of reality that kind of pulls you back in. The acting is absolutely stellar. The music in this movie is also pretty good. There's not a lot of it, but when it is there, it is really good. As far as the storytelling goes, it's not the worst ever. I think it's some of the best storytelling we've got in the franchise for sure. I think it's more fleshed out than the original. As far as like you get to know the characters a little bit more, and you kind of have a sense of like, I don't know, connection. Because like whenever it's revealed that Kemper was going to propose to Aaron, like it was like, oh no, like it was like a sense of sadness. So you're like, oh no, I really wanted that for them. So there was that one bit of connection there, and then like you find out like the hitchhiker girl is connected to a family, and there's that sense of like compassion that comes through again, where like there's a baby involved, and they stole a baby that could have like a normal family because this family is clearly deranged. So there's just a lot of different like things about it that they have going on that I love. I love all the different locations. I love like the color grading of the film too. It's kind of got like this green overlay or something, and I love it because it's just different looking compared to the other ones.
Yeah, visually, I think the movie's very good.
It just does a lot of really, really good things. But again, there are some things I think that I would like rewatching it, I would change and stuff. But overall, it's still pretty high up there for me. I don't have a lot of big complaints.
All right, Geraldine, now that it's time to rank, I don't think it's going to be surprising to either of us where I'm going to rank this. Considering how we feel about the last three films.
Yeah.
This one is my second favorite film.
Mine too!
Of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think the original, hard to beat. Come on. It's a classic. It has a lot of things going for it. This one, I feel like, does a good job of paying tribute while avoiding all the awful cliche stuff that we've seen in the last three.
I agree. So that would put your ranking at what?
From worst to best, that would put me at Next Generation 5th, Texas Chainsaw Part 2 4th, Part 3 2nd, this current... I fucked it up, didn't I? What number did I skip?
No, you didn't. I don't think you skipped. I think you were...
Oh, really? No, you're right. I got confused.
Maybe just do it from best to worst.
I like doing the other way better.
Okay, I'll do mine best to worst.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay. That makes my list. The original is the best one, followed by this remake from 2003.
Okay.
At third place, I got Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3.
Love that. Long title.
Second to last, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And the worst one for me, The Next Generation.
Okay, that's not bad. We're a little bit out of order there, but it's not too far apart. So my best one is the 1974 version. Second place for me is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. This one that we just watched. Love it. It's very high in my ranking, so I'm excited to see where the other ones go.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me is going to be Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. Number 4 on my list. There's so many parts and numbers. Number 4 for me is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, and then the 5th place for me so far is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. That last because I hate Stretch, I hate Lefty, I hate that movie.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad we're both excited for the next one.
Yes. Bring some tissues because I remember the first time I watched it, I cried.
No.
I cried.
I do not expect to cry during a Texas Chainsaw movie.
Okay. Then you might be wrong. You might be wrong.
Well, join us next time to find out whether I cried or not.
Yes, we'll be watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning.
That's right.
Ooh.
Remember to follow us on socials at Fry Pod on TikTok, Spotify, Twitter. Anything you want, we're on it.
Anything you want. We're there for you.
That's right. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa. Editing and music composition by Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa.